Let's talk about the skills of a great listener. And again, simple but not easy. You guys already know these things. But again, let's have a beginner's mind and see if we can approach it in a new way and see if it's fresh for you in some way. So what are the skills of a great listener? All right, well, first is body positioning, body posture. If you're all slumped, if you're sideways to them, these are all not helpful, right? It helps to be squared up to person, helps to be looking them directly in the eyes. So body posture. Our phones, right? Devices, we talked about that. We're going to put those away so we're not distracted. What else is a good skill? Asking relevant questions. Now, not just asking any question, but relevant question. What's a question that takes the conversation farther? And also not thinking just about my own story, right? You ever have a situation where someone's telling you their story, and as soon as there's an opening, you jump in to tell them your own story? Like you ask them, hey, what'd you do last weekend? And they start to tell you about their trip to Hawaii, maybe pre-COVID times, their trip to Hawaii. And instantly, you're jumping in, oh, well, 3 years ago when I went to Maui, and then 10 minutes later, you realize that they didn't get a chance to tell their story. One of the techniques I use, because this happens to me, I like to tell stories, so I jump in. But a technique I use to check myself is called wait. Why am I talking? Wait. And then if I'm conscious, if I'm there and remember it, I'll also play this little game where it's like, okay, if I realize I just want to talk, I just want to jump in, I'll play this game where I say, okay, I'm not going to jump in until I've asked 3 more good questions of them, right? In other words, I'm making the conversation about them. I'm giving them the space to fully talk, right? Another question I can ask myself is, okay, what can I learn here, right? If you find yourself getting bored, maybe the brain is thinking, I know everything there is to know about this person and this conversation. It's just that awareness. First, check myself and then say, okay, what can I learn here? That's good. Other skills. We can ask great questions. A skill of a great listener is to ask great questions. So one of the maybe not so great questions starts with why. And why is not always bad, but it's often bad or less ideal. And you hear it when you hear the question, well, why did you choose that strategy? You can hear that sounds kind of confrontational, right? Because it's loaded. It's a loaded question. So another way to ask that is, what about that strategy was most important to you? Much different, right? Much more open and allows more dialogue to happen. So try to avoid why or come up with a different way of asking why. Then there's the open versus closed questions, right? Sometimes, okay, so truth be told, oftentimes my wife will shop for me. She'll pick out a shirt. She has really good taste, but she believes her taste is more important than my opinion sometimes. So her question would be like, that looks good on you, right? Like, there's no right answer to that question except for yes, honey. So be careful with the super closed-ended where there's no way out. Especially if you're the manager, you have to watch out for questions like, do you agree with this approach? Look, if you're the manager and you're asking that question, there's really little wiggle room a way out of that. So perhaps a better question is, what are your thoughts on this approach? Or how would you do this? Make it so that the other person has a real chance to talk. There's other subtleties here, right? We might ask the question, hey, how are you feeling today? That seems like an open-ended question. But again, in a work environment, there's a lot of pressure to say, yeah, good, good. So perhaps a better question is, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing today? Perhaps even go further. Well, okay, 7, but what's average for you? Like, what's normal? And that's a way to really, if you're really curious about how someone's feeling, it's a way to get there. I especially love the question, what's most alive for you today? It's one of my favorite questions because it really draws someone out, and it speaks to what's really alive for them. So you're going to open up the dialogue in a way that maybe wasn't before. Another similar question is to ask them, what are you most excited about in life? Or what's most important to you today? Now, interestingly enough, we're talking about listening, right? But remember, part of being a great listener is to ask great questions. Okay, we're going to do a journaling exercise, and this one is just a little bit different. You're going to identify 3 areas of all the things we just talked about, all the skills of being a great listener. Pick 3 of those things that you'd like to practice on. And first, we're going to journal them. And so, as an example, I might pick, I'm going to try to really be present for every conversation. I'm going to always put my phone away, and I'm going to ask great open-ended questions. But pick whatever 3 are most important to you. And then for the next week or month, choose one of those skills each day to practice. All right, so you can pause now and journal. So what are the 3 things that you want to practice? And then when we come back, we'll talk about what we call the 7-minute story. It's a way to really build a relationship with someone. We'll see you soon.